Well, welcome everyone. I believe it's 2 o'clock, so I'm going to start right on time. Welcome to the Digital Flagship Town Hall. My name is Cory Tressler. I'm the Director of Learning Programs and Digital Flagship for the university. I work out of the Office of Distance Education and E-Learning. So the way we've structured this, and it can be fairly free-flowing if you'd like, is we want to give a little bit of updates of where we are, what the initiative is a little bit, but what we've done this year thus far in the first full year of the initiative as far as an implementation standpoint, and some of the next things that are coming, and then leave lots of time for any questions that you may have, sort of as you see what we're up to. So I'm going to jump right into it with a little bit of the why we were doing this at Ohio State. And one of the important reasons of why is this question. Why is technology important in higher education? And there's a whole bunch of reasons, but some of the most glaring ones for our students are what they're going to leave the university and go into as far as a workforce. So by 2020, which is just next year, approximately 7 million jobs that were out there are going to disappear. A lot of those because of technology. So it's interesting that we're looking at this initiative of how to build students' tech skills, but some of the automation of things is going to lead to some of these jobs going away. And thus 85%, or sort of estimated there, of jobs in 2030 have not even been defined or created yet. So we know we're bringing our students into an ultra-rich technology environment. How do we prepare them even though we don't know exactly what those positions or those careers they're going into will be? And this is just some of the things that technology can do. It can build skills, access to resources, education costs can be reduced, increased digital literacy is a massive reason we're doing this, marketable skills for our students as they go, and that ties right into a career readiness. That is one of the big pillars of this initiative is, again, thinking about how we can have successful students academically here while they're at the university, but how do we better prepare them for when they go out into the world? And a lot of those skills are soft technology skills like collaboration, communication, time management, work-life balance, information literacy, and how you manage information and describe if it's real or if it's not real based on now the internet. All of those skills that are now defining who we are and what we need to be, we want to make sure we're getting our students ready. And also there is a gap right now in sort of what's out there in the job market as far as what's being filled. So this is current data that we pulled actually just from yesterday, mixed with some data that we've had for a little while. But right now in Ohio alone, there's about 14,000 open computing jobs. Now, even though the title of this slide focuses on computer science, many of these positions do not have to be filled by people with computer science degrees. And that's a big part of this initiative as well, because it's trying to provide digital skills to all of our students, regardless of their major. And then nationally, there's over 500,000 open computing jobs. And computer science alone is only producing about 60,000 graduates a year. So that's what I mean. There is a gap that if we can provide usable technology skills for our students regardless of their degree, it's going to potentially lead for more employable status for them going into the workforce. Also, we know that the app economy has sort of created a boom in sort of what types of jobs are out there. And a lot of app development jobs, yes, there's programming involved in there to actually create the app, but there's a lot of graphic design, user experience, marketing communication, strategic planning, project management, a lot of other types of skills and sort of things go into actually creating these apps that we are all now using in the world. And this is just sort of a representation of where a lot of those jobs have popped up in the last few years, just based on mobile apps from Apple alone. So that's one of the reasons why is how do we make our students more employable into this and more career ready as they leave this university. Again, we want them to be successful academically, of course, here. So a lot of our focus is on that. It is a student success initiative tied to a lot of the strategic plan that the university has released. Major 2 pillars of that plan are around access and excellence. And as I said, one of the big pillars for this initiative is also career readiness. So we try to hit these 3 big areas and goals in everything that we do. And the 3 major areas that we do that are the student technology, which is the iPad that you've probably heard a little bit about, coding curriculum, which we're about to launch that I'll talk a little bit more about today, and the design lab and app development concepts that we've already started working in. And I have a little video clip of actually the first mobile design lab that we launched about an activity they did yesterday in Lima. But the first side is that student technology piece. And every student at Ohio State this past academic year, the one we're in right now, it received an iPad Pro with 256 gigabytes of local storage, Wi-Fi enabled, Apple Pencil, Apple Keyboard, a case, a suite of apps that's available to them at no cost. It did not increase their tuition. They do not have to pay any extra fee or anything associated with that. We did a heavy lift at orientation, which you'll see in how we did this in this video. And this is something we're moving towards and preparing for this summer coming up in just a couple weeks, it seems like now, where orientation cycles will start again here at Columbus campus as well as all of our regional campuses. So this is just a little video from how did we do this with the magnitude and the scale we are. This past year, about 11,500 students received the iPad.
Digital Flagship is one of the largest one-to-one device implementations in higher ed because we believe in the access and opportunities this provides our students. Here's how we made it possible to get 11,000 devices into the hands of our newest incoming class. Once the purchase order was placed, the serial numbers were received from Apple, added to our point-of-sale system, Counterpoint, assigned in DEP and our CMDB, and pre-staged in Jamf. Then it was time for logistics. That means 11,000 iPads, cases, keyboards, and pencils delivered, confirmed, shipped to our distribution area daily, unpacked and kitted, and don't forget recycled, placed into 25 bins with 10 kits each, and delivered to our daily deployment areas. Meanwhile, a list of device-eligible students was generated in the Student Information System, which triggered an email communication from DocuSign, directing students to sign electronically accepting their device. When the students arrived to pick up their technology, we checked to see if they signed their agreement using our custom ServiceNow app, which scanned the device serial number and linked it to their account. After that, students set up their devices, signed in, Jamf linked to their student account, required a password, and they were ready to go. Then they downloaded apps from Self-Service, our main vehicle to provide students with software. Now that they have their devices, we offer tech support over the phone, in person, and online throughout the time they are a student at Ohio State. That's how we've managed more than 11,000 new devices at Ohio State.
So that's a little bit of like how we did it from an IT standpoint and managing the asset, because it is, a university asset. The students do not own the device when we distribute it to them. When they graduate, they will own the device and we'll take all the management software off of it. But it was a pretty big lift getting to that point of getting them out to 11,500 students. And some of the things you heard in there, Jamf is our mobile device management system. It allows us to do sort of asset management and distribute apps to it. It's a piece of software that OCIO manages for us and allows us to have some security sort of protocols in place, but again, also about getting content to the student and from an asset standpoint, knowing that that iPad is with that student. All the iPads that go out to students do not have asset tags on them, like your university computers or iPads that you have do. We manage that again through Jamf, knowing that this student with this ID on the Ohio State side received this serial number from Apple, and we use a piece of software called DEP that Apple provides to help us manage that security side of it. But it was a substantial lift. A few things are changing for this year. We still are paperless with DocuSign, so the student, once they start to register for orientation and are fully accepted into the system to start in autumn, will receive an email from the university that has the DocuSign student agreement that they sign. That then triggers that they're ready to get it when they get to us, and then we can scan it and hand it out to us. What's fantastic this year that you saw in this video is we did a lot of kitting last year of putting everything in these bags. And 11,000 pencils, keyboards, iPads, just like it said, came in all separate boxes, 10 at a time in each box. That created a huge amount of sort of logistics, but also cardboard, just recycling in general. This year we were able to find a third-party provider that will actually put them in a backpack for us. So we will not have to do those those manual sort of logistics on campus this year, which is a huge advantage for us from being able to work more with students, because it frees up a lot of staff and student employee time. Rather than kidding, they can get out there and get in front of the students and talk to them, start working with them on their iPads. So that's a huge advantage for us this year. Also, and here's a student quote, which is a really nice one. Recently, Apple just released a new iPad. So last year I said we used the iPad Pro 10.5. We were planning and moving in that direction of keeping the same technology for this coming year. About 2-3 weeks ago, they announced a discontinuation of that model. So we are switching to the iPad Air 10.5, which is extremely similar to the iPad Pro 10.5 in that the same keyboard, the same pencil, similar casing will be provided to the students. So in all intensive purposes, they're getting the same package as last year, just a little bit of a name change and a little bit of sort of feature sets within the technology itself change. But from a functionality standpoint of how they take notes or utilize Carmen or other resources on campus, it works exactly the same as the iPad Pro 10.5 does. So that's something we are rolling out. If your department or interested in purchasing an iPad through Tech Hub, they do now have a bundle pricing on this new model. It should ship at the beginning of May, about 2 to 3 weeks from right now, for any departmental purchases if you are interested in that at all, to have the same package as what students will be getting. But that's sort of what we're setting our stage for this coming year. So there's some changes in how we're going to distribute to the students, in that we're going to leverage orientation more at the regional campuses. We're going to continue to leverage orientation here at the Columbus campus, which will look very similar to this, about 250 to 275 students almost daily throughout the entire summer, excluding the 4th of July week. But we had such good feedback from working with first year experience on getting to the student over the summer and providing them that information that they can take with them in the form of the iPad and all of the orientation materials and connectedness to the university, that at some of our other campuses we're now going to distribute at orientation as well. So it's a big advantage of getting in front of the students and getting them access to resources and information before they even step foot into official class for the first time at OSU. What they do is they come in, and you saw this a little bit in the video, and you can see Scott here helping a student right now, is they come in, they check all that, they've already docu-signed their agreement, we check it out to them so we know who has what iPad, and then they immediately go and start working with our staff and our students on how to set those devices up, start getting the downloaded apps that automatically download to the iPad, like the Ohio State Discover app, the Ohio State mobile app, Duo, and then we have a suite of apps that are available in the Ohio State App Store for free, and students can start preparing for those and start interacting with them literally immediately as they set up and log in with their Apple ID and things like that. A little bit of data on all of these iPads that are out there. We have approximately 11,400 out with students right now. At any given moment within a 3-day window, over 90% of them are active. So we know the students are using them. We intentionally picked a mobile device management system that is very mindful of the students' privacy. So we are not trying to mine data about exactly what they're doing at any given moment on these iPads. We know sort of what apps they've downloaded, things like that. If they lose their iPad or it's stolen, we can help lock it and do some geolocation to help try to find it for them. But other than that, we're not receiving a lot of data, and that was purposeful because we didn't want there to be a lack of trust between us and the student on what are we seeing with this device. Because while a lot of the one-to-one initiatives where every student is given a device by an institution, a lot of the research is done on the K-12 world right now. There is a good body of research that says the more personalized that they can use the technology, the more they will utilize it for academic and professional uses. So it's okay to use Netflix, and it's something we say to students at orientation that this is yours to use. Yes, we own it while you're here, but we want you to utilize this and come up with ways that you're going to use this in your studies and your professional life as you're going into internships over the summer or volunteering or whatever, managing your time just like all of us do with our calendars and things like that we do in a professional world. We want them to start using that on the mobile device. A little bit more of the data, again, not about 90% at any given moment are active, are being used. Less than 4% are inactive over any sort of significant part of time in a general sense. And about 1.5% is what our damage, lost, stolen rate is, which is pretty great in the body of research that's out there among one-to-one initiatives, that we are not seeing just a wealth of sort of cracked screen or lost devices or things being misplaced or just total damage replacement things being done. While there is no cost to the student to get the technology, if they do, say, crack a screen on their device, it does come with Apple Care, and they are responsible for the $49 replacement fee for that device. So that is one cost that is available to the student, or potentially. Another sort of element of all of the sort of logistics and procedures that we have is we do have a very high retention rate on the Columbus campus and solid retention rates on all of our regionals, but we do naturally have students that leave for whatever reason before graduation. When they do so, when they're identified as unenrolling, they get an email from the university that says you can either purchase the iPad at the depreciated value, return it to us, or let us know that you are returning within, say, one semester, excluding summer, because not everybody enrolls in summer. So that is something that we sort of have built out that process and are still working with the bursar's office and the registrar on that. But we've seen, again, really high usage of this. Some of the apps that have been downloaded are really interesting too on the data side. Canvas is not an app that we require the students to download. It's one that they have to go sort of fetch from the Ohio State App Store. It's at about 94% download rate, which you would expect because that's such a big part of the e-learning and the learning systems that we provide at the university. Notability is one of the only pay apps that we provide to students. Over 90% of our students have downloaded that pay app, which is exceptional. Again, because there's a lot of note-taking software out there that they could leverage, that we are seeing that students really enjoy that app. One really nice feature on Notability is they can use the Apple Pencil to take handwritten notes and then search their handwriting for any of the words that they've written. So far as sort of searchability and organization of your thoughts and notes, being somebody that used paper throughout almost their entire college experience, that's pretty massive from a resource standpoint. Microsoft Word is very high at 76%. And then YouTube and Netflix both come in at about 70% on all these devices. Again, we don't know when they're leveraging those apps, but we know that they're utilizing. And an app like Top Hat has about 62% of our devices have that. And that's mostly leveraged from when faculty say, hey, you're in my course now, we're going to utilize Top Hat in this class. So that's a representation of how many of our courses are now utilizing Top Hat as an active learning strategy within sort of gen eds or other courses that are out there. So one of the other really large pieces of this, as we're rolling out this technology to all of these students, is around programming. What type of programming are we offering to the students, and how are we providing them with information on how to utilize this technology? But also, how are we leveraging it with faculty? And what we did for the faculty side of thing is really create a cohort model of professional learning called Digital Flagship Educators, which allows them to get the same technology as the student. They apply. This last year it was all open call. And we really were focusing on gen eds because that's the primary audience for a lot of first year students. They're given the same technology, they're given training in that technology, but most of the training is around teaching and learning within sort of the ecosystem that we're provided here at Ohio State, meaning Carmen, Top Hat, the Microsoft Office Suite, Box, all of these things that we have available to us in the e-learning side, but then also active learning sort of strategies in a face-to-face, online, or blended environment from a sort of pedagogy standpoint. So we partner really heavily with the University of Institute for Teaching and Learning on the workshops that we provide and the type of information, and making sure we're aligning with their mission as the university as well. Within this first year, really this started in May, so we're not quite a full year from when the programming started around this. We've reached 310 instructors across the university setting, meaning they all got the same technology training and sort of got to work with instructional designers and consulting on how are they going to implement various types of technology into their course. Because one thing we lead with is it's not necessarily about the iPad. We're not saying, faculty, you must integrate X, Y, and Z, this app or whatever, into your course. No, that we're saying, how are you approaching this? How do you want to approach your learning objectives? And here are the resources that we provide. And here's some of the sort of, again, teaching and learning strategies that we can help you think through. We're not defining that for them because that's the faculty's purview, is their course. But what we try to do in that training is to be flexible on what they might want to do, like create instructional videos, or again, use a polling software, assessment strategies, knowing that every student in your course potentially has an iPad with an HD camera, a microphone, and software to create podcasts or videos or whatever, websites, whatever the thing may be. Will that change a faculty's perspective on how they're meeting their learning objectives or assessing those learning objectives? That's sort of the conversation we have with faculty, not dictating that you must use Notability or some sort of app. So it's very one-on-one in a lot of the strategy side of how it's being implemented by these faculty. But we are really excited that we were able to reach this number of faculty in 1 year and have such a diverse pool from our regional campuses as well. So not just Columbus campus, even though it's a big piece of the pie over there, we're really excited that we were able to reach a lot of our representation of instructors as well as academic advisors, because academic advisors play such a vital role in that first year experience with students. From a standpoint of more traditional advising, but also they teach the first year survey course. So we wanted to be sure they had the tools necessary to implement into that, being one of the only first year courses that we offer at Ohio State that's primarily first year students. Again, who we've served, you can see the wealth of it is in that sort of faculty, large faculty bucket we just call instructors on this slide. But a lot of these staff, again, are also teaching courses along with their sort of staff roles at the universities. So program managers, advisors, again, extension educators, step mentors who are also mostly instructors as well, faculty. And then we do have a fair number of instructional designers who support the teaching and learning mission of the university and distributed models that also received the technology and went through the training. So we're really excited about that, and we'll continue to grow that program in our outreach on how we reach more and more faculty. And again, I can't say it enough, the message isn't about the technology, if you will. It's about leveraging teaching and learning practices around the pedagogy of what they want to do in their course. It's not necessarily about the iPad, if you will. But we do want to make sure that they understand what type of technology their students have if they do want to leverage that in addition to other e-learning tools we offer. Some of the other things we're seeing from the first year, I would say probably one of the monumental things as far as feedback from students has been in this bucket here with study skills, mostly around note-taking. Again, the fact that 90% of our students have downloaded Notability is really massive, in that they're leveraging it, they're looking at our resources on how to take research-based notes, and they're doing it. And they're giving us feedback that they enjoy the experience. Again, they're not carrying as many notebooks to class and trying to manage that because it's all literally right here in one sort of device and one sort of setting. That has huge advantages. Again, all that searchability and sort of strategies they would take in note-taking, that's been really, really big. Obviously, if a professor is leveraging Carmen, they again have instant access to all of those resources, no matter where they're at, as long as they have a Wi-Fi connection. And if they're uploading their slides, a presentation like this to Carmen, they could download that and then they could take that wherever they are, regardless of Wi-Fi. So again, that sort of management and sort of organization of how you're approaching your academics is a huge bucket, and really exciting that we're getting such positive feedback from students. Cost savings is big. We know ebooks cost less. We're working on sort of a bigger program called Carmen Books that you'll be hearing more about if you haven't already heard. It's an extension off the Unison partnership we have. That basically we have an ebook reader called Engage. We're naming it Carmen Books here. That allows us to work with publishers on how we can get more affordable textbooks to our students on the first day of classes. So in theory, if a student is taking, say, Chemistry 1210 next fall, which is a large enrollment general chemistry course that we have about, 6,000 to 7,000 enrollments every year in general chemistry, This next year, they will be part of the Carmen Books group. The student will pay their tuition. There will be a book fee now on their tuition, and that book will show up in Carmen in their course when they log in first day. There's no ordering for the student, no process. It's just right there. So that first day access could lead to a lot. And oh, by the way, it's about 70 to 80% off the list price normally found at the bookstore. So that's a huge sort of affordability thing we're working on right now. And having a device in everybody's hands helps us leverage that type of affordability across our institution. Again, that's totally opt-in by the department and the individual faculty member on leveraging that. And if you have any questions about Carmen Books, you can email me and I can pass you on to the Affordable Learning Exchange team and they can help work with you on what that is. But this is just some of the benefits we're seeing. On the student outreach side, this has been huge because our office traditionally has worked primarily with faculty and staff. And by doing trainings with faculty and staff, providing them resources and tools, that's how we're hopefully getting to student success in the traditional sense through the Office of Distance Ed and E-Learning and the Office of the CIO. Now, because of this initiative, we are doing programming directly with the students. And this is the first time we've really done this at scale. We have our digital unions, which are sort of these beautiful collaborative learning environments, sort of from a lab standpoint, a traditional computer lab standpoint. That's got some student programming that we've done in the past, but this is really now with the giving the students technology and the coding and the app development, providing them new types of programming from our office that we've never done. And that was a big sort of lift on how do we reach them? Where do they want to go? What type of event will they come to? And what we've been trying to do is leverage our partners in first year experience, Student Life, STEP, Dentist Learning Center, and how can we jump onto programs they're already running and sort of events that they're doing, and also come in there and offer our programming with them. So these are a lot of the outreach sort of opportunities we've taken more in the in-person sense, and you can see the First Year Success Series is a huge part of that, offering a lot of sessions through that group. But we also leverage video tutorials through our app and our website that have received over 10,000 views as well. So this is primarily focusing on how in person we're trying to reach students, not only at orientation through the distribution, but once they get back on campus. But then there's that virtual side, which I'll talk a little bit more about in our app as well. But there has been a lot of excitement across campus by both the faculty and staff in leveraging this and sort of what's next and how we can do this in various ones of our courses and then individually by students to unlock creativity and collaboration. Through the Digital Flagship Educators program, we created iPad sections of courses. So again, primarily gen eds. Part of the criteria was for this to be part of this was not only going through the Digital Flagship Educators program, but the course had to have multiple section offerings. Because this year we were not going to create an iPad-only section of a course if another section wasn't offered of the same course, because not every student has an iPad yet across our system. So we've had 2,700 unique students enroll in those courses throughout the first 2 semesters, and we'll continue to grow that. What's exciting about next year and the coming years is that will start to blend itself into the everyday operations of our teaching and learning environment at the university, because within a couple years, all 60-ish thousand undergraduate students will have an iPad. So we're, again, moving along there, and it's exciting to get a nice head start with some of those enrollments. This is one of the foundational sort of elements of this entire initiative. One thing that probably all of you as educators in here have heard is this sort of myth about the digital native. It's been something that's been on the tip of e-learning and ed tech tongues of providers and faculty for years now, about 10 to 15 years. This has really risen as a thing. And what we're looking at this as is it's not really a thing. So the digital native sort of concept is that because this person is young and they were born into a world of iPhones and Androids and whatevers, that they just know how to use technology really, really well and thus don't need any training or skill development in that area. And I think probably most of the people in this room can agree that that is not true. They may know how to use Instagram and a lot of other sort of social media things really well and really hilariously, but they don't necessarily know how to collaborate, communicate, create at a professional academic level. And that's where a lot of our programming focuses, is how can you unlock that creativity, say, to create a video, to create a podcast, to create a website? How are you communicating with your faculty member knowing you have this device and now you're in this setting? Are you leveraging email in a responsible way or in a productive way, or the Carmen sort of messaging tools? How are you managing your time? How are you managing sort of your stress level and your wellness, knowing that there's a constant bombardment of information provided to everybody in this room and our students? How are they managing the stress created by that? And it's sort of a double-edged thing because we're providing them with this iPad, but we're also providing them on sort of wellness education on it's okay to turn this off and go for a hike or a run. And oh, by the way, there's this feature on iPad called Do Not Disturb, where you can turn that on so you're less distracted in class. There's also another accessibility feature of iPad that allows you to lock into one app so you can't get out of it. So you won't even see those notifications come on. So a lot of our student mentors have created little videos for other students on use this accessibility feature that was really created for this, but now can be a distraction sort of tool for you to sort of limit what you're able to see on your own iPad and manage yourself. So those are the things we're looking at, but we're really breaking down this myth because we just don't believe it. We believe they need just as much training and sort of skill development as anybody else with technology if we wanted to get them to a very productive level with it. Some of the resources that we've produced through this, we have a book that we created for the students sort of on a lot of these tutorials and how-tos, as well as where they can go for resources, security and privacy information, again, some of these wellness tips, all within a book that they receive right at orientation on the iPad. Another sort of second book that we produced, and this one took a lot of work as the ramp up side of it is tying into university policies so they understand what their sort of agreement they're assigning to for the university as far as code of conduct, acceptable use of using our network, things like that. What happens when the technology breaks? If it does, where do I go? So we have a secondary book both on the iPad and on our website on how to manage all of those things because they can be very real. And this is a little example of one of the videos we've created for our students and our faculty and staff.
Create meaningful notes with Notability. Start with a new note in Notability. Simply touch the title to edit it and insert your own. Now you're ready to start typing notes. You can stick with the main canvas or level it up with graph paper, colors, and lines. If handwritten notes are more your speed, use the Apple Pencil. Touch the pencil icon once to select and tap it twice if you want to change the width or the color. Want to draw more attention to your writing? The highlighter tool works the same way. To go back to your keyboard, touch the T icon and then tap wherever you would like to start typing. You can change font, size, and color, as well as store 3 different font style combinations to make formatting your notes a breeze. And that's how you create meaningful notes using Notability.
So again, that was just an example about a 60-second video that we've created, and we have a series of these. That one's just, again, sort of how do we get started with something like Notability. But there's other features like Notability where you can grab a web clip or you can insert a part of your ebook by doing a screenshot, marking that up, take a picture, take a video, record audio, whatever you need to do. So it's a really powerful app, so we try to provide students sort of OSU-centric videos on those. The other extremely positive and powerful thing that we created to get in front of all of our students about all this information was the first app that we created as part of the Digital Flagship initiative, and that's called Ohio State Discover. So for years now, we've had this extremely powerful and highly used app called Ohio State Mobile that's primarily for Androids and iPhones. We have almost every student uses it. It's pretty crazy, the data side of that. So we have a very captive audience in that. So we've had a lot of success in the app development world for our community. So this past January of 18, we went to Cupertino. We took a group of students. We took a staff member from first year experience, a staff member from student life, sort of experts in what does orientation in the first year of an Ohio State student look like, as well, again, we took 4 students with us out to Cupertino to their enterprise app development lab. And we did the full app development sort of design process with Apple. And what we came up is with this app, Ohio State Discover, which our students got in May of last year when we started orientation, used throughout the entire orientation experience, then when they got back to campus as well. The first sort of area you see when you log into the app is this screen here called For You. And essentially you can scroll up and down on here and there's sort of news articles, if you will, where a student can tap on any one of these and information will pop up. Sometimes a video, sometimes just information, a link to something else like an event. But this is where a lot of our tutorials live. We also do sort of app challenges and outreach to students. Over time, and actually this summer, this will start to be more modified for the student based on what campus they are, what year they are, their rank. Because this, again, will have a lot of the orientation sort of checklists and tools and sort of content in it. But if you're a second year student, you don't necessarily need to log in and see that every time. So we do want to personalize it to their experience. Also, we want to create sense of community and a large standpoint to the entire Ohio State community, but we also know we do have 6 campuses. So we want to make sure a student that logs in at Newark is also receiving news or sort of features about Newark and things that they're able to do there, not just content solely from Columbus about resources here. Over the past year, over 95,000 articles on this homepage have been viewed. So again, a lot of reach there with our students. The second tab is sort of a pullover from the Ohio State mobile app. This is more of your sort of systems and sort of specific information about your bill, scheduling, all of those things. Again, this is in the Ohio State mobile app. We pulled it over because this is one of the highest uses of the Ohio State mobile app. We wanted to make it available on iPad as well and sort of formatted for that. Get Involved was sort of the first surprise and delight sort of side of the design process, because when we went to Cupertino, our major problem that we were trying to solve was we're giving out 11,000 iPads. How do we really get in front of students to give them training and information about how to use this and why we're doing it? So that front page, the For You, was a huge part of that. You know, that's how we can get information to them. But as we were unpacking things with the students that were with us in Cupertino and the staff that was with us, we also realized there's other things that students want and other things that students need and want to come back to get information on. One of the big things is in this slide is the Get Involved is around the student organizations. We have over 1,300 student organizations through the Office of Student Life here at the university. That's a lot to navigate for a student. Now on this iPad app, it's all sort of touch-based where they can see all, they can search it, they can tap on any one of these and it takes them to their website. Is there fees involved with the student group? Who's the leader of the student group? A little bit more information, all within the app. We've also built some scheduling tools in here as far as the university schedules around athletic events, but also sort of, again, student life events, leadership events from a specific college or different things like that. This has had over 30,000 actions taken in it, which could be like tapping on this one and seeing what it's about. So again, a lot of impact and a lot of data coming back that these are useful tools for the students. And then probably the ultimate surprise and delight from that sort of trip was Course Planner. And this was not on our radar at all. Again, I sort of described why we went out there and our goals. This came directly from students. So when we started unpacking what it's like to register for classes for the first time from a student and how to manage that with the degree program forms, the gen ed requirements, some campus change if you're coming from a different campus to main campus over time, how do you manage that as a student? And what they kept telling us is, well, we have spreadsheets. We have multiple tab spreadsheets that we keep on our own, where it's like plan A, B, and C, because sometimes when I go to register, none of those courses are left, so I have my secondaries. And then I have my gen eds that I've highlighted and done. We did all of that in this iPad app. So on the left side is the entire Ohio State course catalog searchable. You can filter by mode of delivery or campus or sort of topic that you're interested in. You then can drag or drop, or for accessibility, you press plus and then add it to the section you want. You can drag and drop within here and create multiple plans that you want to share with your advisor, because in the upper right-hand corner, in one tap, you can then send that email to your faculty advisor, your academic advisor, whoever you're working with, and then when you meet with them, have something you can take notes directly on. So that when your scheduling window comes up and you're looking at sort of your long-term time at the university to degree, you have it ready to go, all in your iPad, and no longer have to manage a spreadsheet sort of on your own. So that was really exciting, and we've had over 66,000 sort of events created on this as well. So again, it's being used heavily, and we see spikes in that around when registration windows are start to come open. So that was the first app, and that came out to students in May of last year, right with orientation. It was right on the iPad right when they got here. This past January 2019, we went back to Cupertino with a different group of students, a different group of experts, and are exploring mental health. And not trying to recreate an app like Headspace or some of the other apps that are out there for sort of meditation and sort of mindfulness and things like that, but how do we get students to university resources in this area faster? And how do we give them a little bit of education about some of these important topics that you can see on this slide, so that if they're in a moment of crisis or needing help, they have a little bit of resources, but also their peers who may be witnessing another student going through an issue has a little bit more resource available to them in one touch that they could potentially help that person or contact the right person to help that person. So that's what we're starting to build right now. We're right now in sort of the resource allocation phase of this, because this is a much different app than the Ohio State Discover app. This is very specific content on a very specific topic, where the Ohio State Discover app is very broad in digital literacy, university events, and resources. This is targeting much of the things out of the Wellness Center and student life. So how do we work to get their content, what type of content available in here? And that's what we're working towards to release in next academic year. So we go to Cupertino and we design these with Apple, but it is our app developers here on campus in the Office of the CIO that build these apps and then test them with our students and then roll them out. So that's the next one, so please keep an eye out for that as we go into next academic year. So what are we seeing in the classroom? And I talked a little bit about this, and one of the huge things is just amazing note-taking and organization of thought by students now on the iPad. So this is just one example of some notes that a student is taking, all with the pencil, and able to sort of break down sort of different things in different ways. Again, here's another one where they're taking real images and then layering on actual drawings and tracings that they have done to sort of, again, document what their process is, what they're seeing. Here's one where they took an image directly from, say, a textbook and also aligned it with their handwritten notes, so they're able to layer those sort of resources on top of each other. And then this one is pretty amazing, where they're just creating these drawings and as well as mixed in with sort of typing notes. So it's flexible to whatever the student wants to do. So as far as in the classroom, we're seeing a lot of these types of activities, as well as specific integrations by faculty around what types of projects they're doing, assessments, and things like that. One of those instructors is an academic advisor, Max, who's bigger in life here. He's an academic advisor primarily working with first-year students out of Newark's campus. He's a great advisor. He was part of the Digital Flagship Educators program, and the first day he got with us, I was there up in Newark, Max had never used an Apple product. He had always used PC computers, he'd always used Android phones, things like that. The very first thing he did after he unpacked his iPad out of the box was ask us where to plug in the mouse. So Max came from basically level 0 with Apple-style technology in this sort of mobile ecosystem of iPad to now doing some really creative things in both his classroom setting in Carmen, but also in his academic advising. I talked to him this morning, and Max actually describes Digital Flagship as sort of revolutionizing the way he does his job day to day. So this is some examples from Max. So this is a degree program form that many of you are probably very familiar with in your own college, in your own area. Max now shares these resources with his students completely paperlessly. He has them on his iPad, and then he can airdrop them or put them in box, and the student then immediately has them in their iPad. They can sit shoulder by shoulder, and talk about some of these skills that are in these areas. They can talk about specific gen eds and sort of mark up the gen ed PDF that's out there as well. About what have you taken? What do you already have credit for in high school? And sort of mark this up. A lot of this was traditionally done by paper on our students and our advisors working together. Again, totally paperless now. They're able to mark up these very specific documents about what you need to get into the application process of yours. And the student has that record, as does Max, at all time now digitally saved. There's no losing it in between here and there. But what's really remarkable, and this is not why we built this tool at all, again, we built this course planner to be a very student-centric planning tool. Max now uses this 100% with his students and takes all of his advising notes in course planner on the iPad. We did not anticipate this at all. This was not the reason. But this is sort of innovative approaches that a smart, very capable academic advisor and instructor came up with his students. So what they do now in the course planner, they can take pencil, the Apple Pencil, and make notes directly inside of it in these blocks. Move them around just like you would. So you're going to try out for marching band, pending tryouts. You need to schedule another class. What Max then does is take screenshots of this and uploads it to the advising notes system. So everything he is doing is both documented on the student's iPad, on his iPad, and then in the cloud in the official system that he's supposed to use for academic advising notes. Again, this was not the plan. This course planner was designed to be for the students and them using it. This is just an extremely creative way to collaborate with a student and then to document all of that work. So we're really proud and excited about the work that Max is doing. But this is just one example of the creative people we have here at OSU that can just think of some really, really cool ways to use this technology. So a couple of things that, and then I'll open it up for questions, sort of where we're at sort of going forward. We've released the technology as far as the student tech to the first group. Next year, we're going to another 11,000-ish first-year students as well as transfer students that are eligible. So it'll be approximately 13 to 13,500 students this next year. So we're rolling out that technology. But now what's really exciting for me is we're also standing up the other major parts of this initiative. And one of those is the Mobile Design Lab, which we just launched. And here's a short video from an event they had in Lima yesterday.
Hi, welcome to the Mobile Design Lab. Come on in, I'll show you around. So we're at our Lima campus today, and we've had quite a few students, faculty, and staff come through. We actually had a couple of staff who played with Swift Playgrounds for a while and had a lot of fun with it, which was great. And over here, we have a student who is working with Sam Smith on an app idea. And basically this student just has this great idea but isn't sure exactly the ways to take it forward, and knows a little bit of coding. So he and Sam are looking at Xcode and doing some troubleshooting and just kind of playing with some options and some possibilities. So they're working on that over there. And then over here, we have this wonderful sort of desk space where people can talk one-on-one or in small groups and get some help. And this student is working on some mapping of ideas. So she's thinking through an app idea and applying some design thinking to think about what are the challenges that she's really trying to solve, who are her users, what are some of the things that she should be thinking about proactively so she can really map out her idea before she ever starts to even work on coding. So come on this way. We have a lot of technology in the mobile lab to help students with some of these creative endeavors. So we have the iPads in here. These are the same iPads that students received this year, the first year students received, and they have Swift Playgrounds on there. So we've had several people use these iPads to just start to play around a little bit with Swift coding, and it's fun, it's gamified, and so they've had a good time with that. And then we also, up here on the counter, we have some Mac laptops, and this is where students can engage in coding with Xcode. And also on the iPads, we have a few other ways that students can be creative. So students will be able to use Adobe Spark apps to do some web development. We've had one student who used it to develop her blog for the first time. And so that's also something that students can do in this space alongside some of us who are there to help them. So come on back. We have displays. We have some Apple TVs that students can sit down and they can AirPlay up to the display and talk through maybe some code that they're having a hard time with, or maybe a video that they're trying to edit and they want a little help with. So we have these here as well. And again, it's kind of small group setting. But back here is one of my favorite parts of the lab. So this is our seating for people who want to come together, maybe with a team, or maybe with some classmates and they want to sit down and they want to talk through an idea or do some troubleshooting or problem solving and do it collaboratively, which is wonderful. So we're hoping that in this lab, when students come in, we can help them form teams. We can help them think about, okay, you know how to code and you have a great app idea. How do we pull you together? And some of those conversations can happen here in this space. So like I said, today we're in Lima. We're going to come back to Lima on April 17th for a big event that we're going to partner with them on. And we're really dedicated to making it to all of our regional campuses. We've been to Newark, and we're also going to make it to Worcester and Mansfield and Marion this month as well. And we're also looking forward to doing some more work in the community. We went to Upper Arlington schools a couple weeks ago and invited students in to just explore the space and think about how something like this might be valuable for them, or the technology that's in it can help them be creative as students going forward. So welcome to the lab. When you see it around, please come in and say hi.
That is our first mobile design lab. It's a 34-foot bus that we completely gutted and renovated into sort of this teaching and learning space, outreach vehicle, focusing a lot on what Jessica was talking about. How can this be an outreach arm of our coding curriculum, app development, design thinking, creativity, as well as digital literacy around the iPad as we roll them out this summer. So the bus will be at all of our events this summer on each campus to help support that. But it is a pretty great classroom on wheels that we're really excited about. Being Ohio State and the flagship university, the land-grant University of Ohio, and working through OSU Extension in all 88 counties, this gives us an opportunity to also work with K-12 partners. So we're getting a lot of feedback on it and developing programming. So if you do see it on campus, please stop in and say hi. So that's up and live, and it's all on our website with some dates and on where we're going to be. But the next thing that's coming in May is the Swift coding curriculum. The Swift coding curriculum will really focus on how do we provide students with the basic understanding of how coding works and how technology works, computational thinking, as well as get them started with sort of app design process. And it sort of comes in twofold. So you heard Jessica mention Swift Playgrounds. Swift Playgrounds is a free app on iPad. It's one that we provide to students in the OSU Apple Store or the OSU App Store. It's sort of a gamified way to start learning the syntax and sort of the process of coding and how it works and how every step and every sort of character is important in your code and what you want it to do. So you sort of, this little monster here is gamified, and you have to collect like rings and diamonds and all sorts of things. You have to tell it what to do, all through learning the coding language. So that's sort of the level 0, if you will, of it. The next sort of phase is Xcode on a Mac. And that's sort of the primary way we're going to teach students coding is through the Swift language that leads to a lot of the amazing apps that you see in the Apple ecosystem, either on TV OS, Mac OS, or on iPad, iPhone. So our coding curriculum course 1 will launch in May. It will lead to a 4-course sequence. The 4th course we're hopeful to launch by December of this calendar year. And what that will provide students at no cost to them is a way to learn this coding skill and leave the university with a certificate that they can put on their resume that they've taken these course sequences and they've learned sort of the basics of how coding and app development works. All faculty, staff, and students will have access to this at no cost to them if they're interested in taking and learning this skill. Again, it's non-credit, so it doesn't enhance or impede on their time to degree or create any sort of new debt to them. We are looking over in the future, after we get the certificate built up, how do we do outreach then with our greater community of alumni, K-12 teachers, sort of again, the greater Ohio community. The other nice thing about this certificate program is our curriculum will help prepare them for an a certificate test that Apple just released last year in app development with Swift. So they, in theory, could earn our certificate at no cost to them and then take this low-cost certificate test from Apple, the first one they've ever had, and have 2 certificates on their resume as they leave the university with their full program degree. One thing that we're excited about is sort of, again, the creative ideas that happen with our faculty, staff, and students, like what Max is doing in his advising classroom, but also in his day-to-day operations. This is actually an app that was created by one of our Digital Flagship students, Daniel Mater. He's a computer science engineering student, it's a second year. In Orton Hall, we now have a dinosaur. That exhibit was launched this past, I think, September was the time frame. He created an augmented reality app for the dinosaur that's in Orton Hall. It's very much version 1 right now, where you come up, you hold up your mobile device, and there's sort of trigger images on this sort of display that brings the dinosaur to life. Then you can manipulate it or plays videos or different things. Sort of a little step into augmented reality and sort of a museum setting on campus. But what's really exciting about this is it was all student driven. This was a student sort of led thing that was created. And what's great for Daniel is Daniel just got an internship with Apple in their augmented reality and machine learning department this summer in Cupertino. So that's a huge opportunity for him in his career. It makes me so excited to give him this opportunity through this initiative to do things like that. Well, thank you for your time, because we're right at 3. Again, I apologize for not leaving a little bit more time for questions. If you do have more questions, I'm Tressler.8, and also we have Digital Flagship at osu.edu, and there is a wealth of information on our website. So again, thank you for your time and your interest.